Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first night of the Arlington International Film Festival. Thank you so much for coming out on this cold evening. Good to have you. Good to have you, each and every one of you. On behalf of the organizers, I welcome you to the 13th Annual Arlington International Film Festival. Welcome to our filmmakers, special guests, and audience members. Give yourself a round of applause, please. And a very special welcome tonight to tonight's filmmaker, Charlie Sadoff, and producer Ken Harbaugh. Give them a big round of applause. Great film you're about to see. Great film. The festival year began with its annual poster contest in partnership with Mass College of Art and Design's Illustration Department. The 2023 winning design was created by Elijah White. I see we don't have any Elijah's relatives here tonight. Great, give yourself a round of applause. It's a beautiful poster. All right, where am I? This year's kickoff on October the 16th was a screening of Arthur Musa's award-winning film, Brief Tender Light. Now, if you missed it, it was a great film. If you missed the screening, you can catch it in 2024 on PBS's Chosen Films to Screen with POV. Now, continuing to expand its partnerships, putting Arlington on the map, AIFF recognizes those that joined us this year. Taiwan Film Festival of Boston, Unified Filmmakers Munich, Germany, Elche Indie International Film Festival, Spain, 48-Hour Film Project in Boston, Global Peace Film Festival, Florida, Roma Indie Fashion Film Festival in Italy, Decentraland VR Film Festival in US and UK, and STK Platform, London, UK, and last but not least, the American Documentary and Animated Film Festival of Palm Springs, California. Thank you so much for helping us all out all year long, not just for the festival. We thank our many collaborators and sponsors, and of course our local businesses, obviously you in the audience for being here. Our sincere thanks go out to each and every one of you for investing in this festival, again, not just this weekend, but all year long, and keeping the art of indie film alive and accessible. We certainly appreciate it. Now, it is my privilege to introduce to you Alberto Guzman, founder and organizer, and April Rank, executive director of the Arlington International Film Festival. They make a mean sangria, just as an aside.
Good evening. Welcome. We are April, Rand, and Alberto Guzman, organizers of the Arlington International Film Festival, and welcome to the opening night. Thank you. As always, we want to thank the Capitol Theater and their crew for hosting us again this year, and to our volunteers. Without them, we cannot be doing the festival. Also, I would like to congratulate the Arlington High School students. For the first time, they are volunteering with the festival, which is, I congratulate them for this achievement. Each year, the festival welcomes all the films and the filmmakers that are chosen for this festival. Their creation and imagination entitle us or inspire us and rethink about the relationship among us and with the world. We are proud to share with you all the lineup of films and the themes. 13 years ago, two unknown residents of Arlington had the courage to create an international film festival. And we put Arlington, Massachusetts in the international map. We create community around the festival, inviting high school students, promoting the local organizations, as well the businesses, and play an important role in the achievement of the cultural district destination. Later, we took the festival to other towns, and today the festival is very proud to say that we have partners not only in Massachusetts, but nationally and internationally in Africa, Middle East, Europe, and South America. This collaboration was formed with intentions of cross-promotion and to promote Massachusetts independent filmmakers. Voices of Our Youth laid the groundwork for us, and this year the festival entered a film, Lock Chop, produced by Cara Finger, who is a Boston filmmaker, to Fenecid in Montevideo, Uruguay. And tonight, we had the privilege to have with us our partner, producer of Fenecid, Jorge Cancela, who is going to award Cara for the Best International Short Documentary Award. She won the Best Short Documentary Award in Fenecid, which is, tonight we have, like I said, to have Jorge, and we invite Cara and Jorge to come to the stage, please.
Thank you. Hello, nice to meet you, and thank you very much for being here in the 13th edition of the Arlington International Film Festival as the producer of the Student Film Festival from Uruguay, Fenecias. It's really an honor to giving you, Cara, the award of this year, 2023 Fenecias, was held on September in Montevideo, Uruguay, our capital city. And it is a beautiful, beautiful documentary, and you are very talented.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I know you have just only one hand useful, so
Yeah.
I got the microphone.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Congratulations,
For the big-
Cara.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's for the
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Can I say one thing very quickly?
Yeah.
Absolutely, you may.
I give you or
I've got it in one hand. I just wanted to thank April and Alberto. My film was in Arlington Film Festival in 2020, the year that you should never have entered a film festival because everything shut down, and I didn't have a chance to ever see it in person with anybody else until you guys played it and entered it into your film festival. So thank you very much for supporting local filmmakers.
Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So this is our time during the festival to thank the people that have supported us all these years and that are very special to us. It's our tradition that we both recognize individuals and businesses, and this year we're honoring the Arlington Community Media for their contributions. Since our inception, they have supported the student film program and have provided assistance with equipment and guidance in all aspects of technical direction. Accepting the award on behalf of the staff is Jeff Bard, the news director. Alberto? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, this is great. Well, this is marvelous. Thank you very much. I arrived at ACMi in the fall of... Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Can you hear me now? Okay. I was just seeing if you were paying attention. Yeah. Thank you very much. I got here in the fall of 2018 at ACMi, and I was told that ACMi has been with AIFF now for all 13 years, and we will continue to do the same Alberto and April are just great people, and it's wonderful that they bring all these movies here in Arlington so we can learn so much about everybody's culture. I think it's everybody benefits from seeing movies like that coming from all over the world. Thank you very much.
At the core of every nonprofit organization is its team of volunteers. And this special volunteer began as an audience member. During our early years, we used to meet in coffee houses and in other various venues, and we had to set up our own equipment. We were very challenged. And this gentleman, very graciously and quietly, stepped out of the audience and said, "Can I help you do anything here?" And he became our technical expert. Not only is he our technician, but Harvey, he has become our hospitality ambassador. He has been appreciated by many filmmakers and special guests for his most interesting conversations to and from the airport. And tonight we are honored not just to honor Harvey as a volunteer, but as a dear friend that has become, this friendship has just become cultivated over the years. So Harvey Yee, thank you very much for everything. Did you want to say anything?
Thank you very much. It's been an honor to work with Alberto and April, bringing films to Arlington. And I never realized the intimacy and the dynamic structure of films until I get to see it up person. So thanks again for allowing me the honor of working with you guys.
Thank you, my friend. You're welcome.
Thank you.
So we've already mentioned that Elijah created this amazing poster that is now all over international film boards, all over Boston, not just in Arlington by any means. So again, we congratulate you, Elijah, and we wish you the absolute best with your graphic design career. And we've been running for the last few years a Audience Choice Award, and we allow people to go online and look at all of the graphic design submissions. So the people have spoken, and they actually voted for Kayla okay, bear with me, Anamalakadis. Is Kayla with us tonight? She is not with us. Okay, all right. Well, then she won't hold me accountable for the pronunciation of her last name. So we do want to say congratulations to her. Now we're all here to watch film, and I have the honor of introducing the films that will screen this evening. Our feature film, Against All Enemies, by filmmaker Charlie Sadoff, addresses political radicalization among our U.S. military veterans and the threat it poses to our democracy. We will begin with a short, Dreaming of a Free Press. Our judges have noted the shortcomings of this film, but decided against everything, that it was overwhelming, that the subject matter was critically important, and that we would show this film. It's a younger filmmaker that does not have the experience that Charlie has, but we think that it will complement our feature film very much. So please enjoy the films and stay seated afterward, because we will have a discussion with the director and the producer. Thank you so much. Okay, just a quick introduction, and then we're going to open this for a discussion, and there will be time for questions and answers as well. Jeff Barn, the news director at ACMi TV Arlington, will moderate this evening's discussion. Jeff has 35 years in the industry, 13-time Emmy Award-winning recipient in television news broadcasting, including 3 Emmys in news writing category and 1 for Boston's Best Anchor. Director Charlie Sadoff hails from a military family, and over the past decade has devoted his filmmaking talents to numerous veterans' causes. He is a graduate of Johns Hopkins University, a writer, producer, and director, a partner and executive producer at Found Object, and Charlie is president of Mighty Pictures, Inc. They produce documentaries, trailers, and promos for networks and companies such as ESPN, Intel, and Paramount Studios. His filmography includes The Definition of Insanity, The Life and Mind of Mark DeFriest, Cut, Poison, Burn, and The Harvest. Executive producer Ken Harbrough also grew up in a military family and is a former Navy pilot and a combat recon mission commander. He has led several influential veterans organizations, and in civilian life, he has been an outspoken advocate for fellow veterans. His writings on civil military affairs has appeared in the New York Times, The Atlantic, and the Yale Journal of International Law. Ken served as a commentator on veteran and civil military issues for National Public Radio and currently hosts the Midas Touch, the fastest growing independent news network in the world, covering breaking news, politics, law, and more. And he says unapologetically pro-democracy. I want to just set the stage for the discussion, borrowing just a few words from Ken. America today is at a crossroads. What will define us in the crises we currently face and for generations to come are the choices we make. Failure is not an option. Welcome, gentlemen.
All right, first of all, before we start, a round of applause for Charlie Sadoff and also Ken Harbrough. It's good to have you here, it really is. This is an incredible topic, and I think the weird thing that I took away from watching this movie is this is almost like a rebranding of hate. Test 1, 2. Yeah. See, when I report, it's like this. Here, I got to get close up. Oh, there we go. But this is almost like a rebranding of hate. This is nothing new. I think a lot of people saw January 6th as, oh my gosh, this is a pivotal point. It's been around for quite some time. It just takes different forms. And this Sunday, we will be 1 year away to the day, the election day, the general election day in 2024. Your film is incredibly timely, and good job to both of you.
Thank you.
As far as the rebranding is concerned, I think the one thing that stuck with me was Denver Riggleman. Now, this guy he's military intelligence. He knows way more than I do. That scares me with what he had to say. So as far as your interview with him went, did that enter your mind? It's like, oh my gosh, this is probably way worse than even we know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Jeff, that hate is nothing new. I mean, we have experienced this as a country from our inception. I think what is almost new, and I qualify it intentionally, is the way a major political party has been co-opted by a hateful movement. Almost new because you have to go back to the Civil War or the second iteration of the KKK. And if that's instructive, it's terrifying. Because when the KKK co-opted a major American political party, it held sway for a century and terrorized a major region of the country because it had the Democratic Party in the South in its grip. Mm-hmm. And if the GOP goes down that path and becomes beholden to a violent extremist organization, as increasingly individual members have become, then I think it is a new thing in this country when you have a major political party on the eve of an election with an extremist ideology.
Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, well, Denver was a member of the January 6th committee. He was a technical advisor, and he's on TV quite a bit now saying as much as he can, but he will, to answer your question, he does reference things that he has seen that he can't disclose that do frighten him. The other thing I would say is that I always think about what Leon Panetta said about Michael Flynn when he was nominating him for the Director of National Intelligence in the Obama administration, which is Michael Flynn's knowledge of the 21st century battlefield is unparalleled. And that's where a lot of this is being fought right now, this online and in spaces where Michael Flynn is radicalizing and recruiting. And he is someone that we should take very seriously.
You know, also, I forgot about Louis Beam. I completely forgot about that guy. And here's a man who basically had Facebook for terrorists.
Yeah, they invented sort of the internet for themselves and for right-wing extremist groups.
We're talking like 1986, 87. Unbelievable. Does anyone in the audience have any questions about the film you just saw? Anyone? All right, well then let's chat. What do you say? Okay. Oh, go ahead, over there.
First of all, I want to congratulations on a wonderful film, and I want to give a shout out to something that doesn't often get praised. Your motion graphics were fabulous. But I don't know, is that you?
No,
Could you talk about how you gained the trust of the people that you interviewed in the film, or some interesting anecdotes behind that? Because it was, especially with the Oath Keepers, how you were able to build that trust to get the footage that you got.
May I add to your question too? How did you get that video, embedded video with the Oath Keepers? That's pretty heady stuff.
So that footage is actually from a filmmaker that we worked with who had been embedded with them and other extremist groups for a couple of years, and we partnered with him and got that footage from him with Stewart and the Oath Keepers in Louisville. Jacob Silman is his name. In terms of Randy Ireland, who's a member of the Proud, leader of the Proud Boys in New York, and General E, who was a 3%er. That was a situation where our field producers, Olia Fadoon and Sam Hartson, had been tracking these groups for a number of years, going to their rallies, and had built up sort of a reputation as treating them fairly with their news coverage. And so they introduced me to them, and then it was just a matter of, getting them to agree to let us come and meet them on their home turf, as it were. So we went to Texas to meet General E, and he wanted to tell his story. He was not bashful. I think he thought that we would give him a fair shake, and I think we do. We actually get criticism from some people for letting them speak sort of unfiltered.
How dare you be objective?
Well, and then the same with Randy. He's, they're not ashamed of what they're saying. They believe what that they're saying is true, and they want to get their point of view out there. So it's just a matter of convincing them that they'll get a fair shake, and I think we did give them a fair shake.
And as far as your question is concerned, how did you gain the trust? How were they comfortable with you talking to them? They were just, as you just said, hey, this is the way it is, and we know the law better than anyone else, and we know the Constitution better than anyone else, and we're going to come back here and run the country.
I mean, I think that's our job as documentary filmmakers, is to make people comfortable and make them trustworthy and feel like, they can be who they are, and not put on airs or not try and disguise what they're really thinking. And I think, that's what we did. We got them to open up and tell us what they were really thinking.
Yeah, I think, and I really appreciate the question, but I think it gets to one of the most terrifying elements of this story, which is that a lot of these actors are true believers. I mean, the people pulling the strings, the J.D. Vances, the Eric Crichtons, they're totally cynical, but they are manipulating people who, in some cases, we've seen are willing to die for the cause. And they don't need to trust you to open up and tell you what they really feel, because they feel like, as General E said, the Lord is on his side. I can't think of a more terrifying expression than that.
Another thing that disturbed me was the Oath Keepers, that video you had, when the police were talking to them about the curfew, and all of a sudden I'm hearing, copy that. All of a sudden everybody's on the battlefield at Antietam or somewhere in Germany. That's very bothersome. There's this fraternal feeling among those in the military, some in the police. When They come home, however, the great majority of them are fine. They assimilate back into everyday society. Everything is good. But this minority that we have is incredibly vocal, incredibly committed, and frighteningly compelling. How do you deal, how do you deal with that? Like I said, we're a year away from the election, and these folks, some now are in the halls of power, and that should be a great concern to anybody. As one guy in the film said, everybody should be scared as, you know what?
Maybe Charlie can take the second part of that, but I do want to acknowledge the first part of your statement, that the vast majority of veterans coming home reintegrate successfully. They find a safe path back into civilian life. That is the story of the majority of those who come home. But there's a reason why we call the outliers force multipliers. It doesn't take many to wreak havoc. And that's what this film is about. It's that vanishingly small percentage that act as force multipliers for an incredibly dangerous anti-democratic movement.
Does anyone else have a question? You, sir.
Yeah, the radicals that are true believers keep saying that they believe that the Constitution is under attack by people like me, I guess, but they never seem to be specific. Are they ever specific about what it is that they feel is under threat with regard to the Constitution?
No, not usually. Maybe Charlie has an exception, but your question really speaks to me, because as someone who went through officer candidate school, who served with, everyone I served with went through some form of military training, very, very few of them, except for those who went to the academy, are ever asked to read the Constitution, which is a stunning indictment of our training regimen, right? Because at the end of that training, actually at the beginning, but then again at the end as well, we all raise our right hand and swear an oath to support and defend a document we've never read. That is pretty telling and pretty damning of the system as it exists. And I find a lot of the people who speak so passionately about the Constitution don't really know what it says.
I think in the case, I think what they were, if you were to ask them that question directly, they would say they're referring to the idea that the election was stolen, and that somehow that therefore is the Constitution being violated because it's an undue election, and that Joe Biden is not the duly elected president of the United States.
Yes, sir, over here.
Haven't there been militia groups for a long, long, long time? I remember hearing about it in Connecticut, like, I don't know, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So my question is, does every state have a militia group?
I suspect in some form or other, there are some that are much more dangerous than the others. Your observation that they've existed for a long time is absolutely valid. But what is different is the fact that now these militia groups have allies in the halls of Congress. These militia groups are actually being name-checked by the President of the United States. It's never happened before. You have to go way back into American history, so, Civil War era, for a commander-in-chief to call to arms a terrorist group. That happened on a presidential stage in the last couple of years.
And also, as Mike Breen points out in the film, these groups now have the internet so that they can recruit in a way they could never have done in the past. And I would also say there's access to arms in this country that is unprecedented. I mean, we've always had the Second Amendment, but it's at a point now where there's more guns than people in the country. So it's a combination of things.
I have to ask you, when you were talking to these people they're just fervent about what they feel and what they believe in guns and Bibles and everything else, were you just sitting there going, I can't believe this person is saying this stuff? And not only that, he's saying it on camera, knowing what we're going to do with it? I mean, they're very compelling. Some of those guys are compelling, frighteningly so.
No, I wasn't feeling that way at all. In fact, like when I was talking to General E., I was feeling myself not believing what he was saying, but certainly understanding how someone who was inclined to maybe believe what he was saying would easily believe him. He's a really compelling guy. I mean, if you're, someone who is in the military and sort of questioning why you were sent overseas, or have some ill will towards the government for whatever reason, someone like Michael Flynn, someone like Eric Greitens, someone like J.D. Vance, someone like Stuart Rhodes, they can be people who you would find very compelling. And that's how I was feeling sitting across from him. I was feeling that.
Unbelievable. All right, you had a question over here.
First say, I kind of disagree with the idea that it's the same movement that we've seen across time. I want to say that this movement is a lot more lethal and dangerous, mainly because you have access to the internet and you have access to a lot of these different types of forums that you can go on. Before they had to actually go and create a forum that they can send messages to, but now you can, what I'm trying to say is before they had to create the forum, and then even within your own community, the message would take time to spread. Now Trump can say whatever he wants to say, and he can say, the election was rigged, and he can send out 45 truths or tweets or whatever he wants to send overnight, and that message is spread just like that. The other part of it is, sorry, give me
Just while you're thinking, I would say I agree. And I think the point we're trying to make in the film is that the objectives of some of these groups are the same, but to your point, they are more lethal now, and for the very reasons you described.
you have also people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and other people saying that they're boldly lying whenever they get the chance to. They just say things like, the January 6th insurrection was a tour of the Capitol building, and it was very nice to see in your film how clearly that was not the case. There was a lot of people injured in the insurrection and stuff like that. How do you combat an informational war? How do you combat an enemy that can't be seen? And then on that note, you have people like Monsanto, who controls a lot of the local, they control a lot of the local news organizations or news stations now. I don't know if you're aware, they're taking over a lot of these different things. You also see a lot of different local stations giving out the same pre-planned messages. And then online you also have charlatans saying all these nonsense.
Do you want to talk about sort of misinformation?
Well, I think one thing you could do is make a documentary about violent extremism. I mean, it's a multi-front war, right? And it has to take place in multiple venues, in person, you go where the people who most need to hear the message are. But I think I'm going to answer a slightly different question than you asked, which is about how you really bring someone back, how you change hearts and minds. And I am not sure that media hits do it, even in aggregate. Sometimes you get lucky, right? I do a weekly appearance on a very conservative AM radio talk show with a former Medal of Honor winner, and occasionally I hear that, somebody's heard the appearance and has had a change of heart. I think the only thing that really does it, though, is engaging with people who you care about, who you love, family members, and I have them in my family, and not being too judgmental too quickly. That's hard, but I think the way you truly change hearts and minds is by talking to those closest to you about what you care about and telling them the truth.
Not being so judgmental also, it comes with a degree of respect. And I have seen that erode in the last 20 years. I mean, people are just, whoever has the loudest bullhorn, whoever's got the bully pulpit at the time, will just scream from the rooftops. And unfortunately, you're gonna have people who are just blindly following them. You were in the Navy. How did it feel to hear some of these people who were in the military saying, you know what, if I have to raise a weapon against those, my brothers in arms, sisters in arms, I'm gonna do it?
It felt bad, but to echo Charlie, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised because I know what happens when you spend that much time in an echo chamber with the same message being repeated over and over and over again.
It's a shame because, to your point, I think a lot of people just read and download and tune into stuff that they agree with politically and culturally, and to heck with everything else. And they marginalize that information, and by doing so, they're closed-minded. And in this case, politically, getting all those guns and everything else with the gun laws that we have, or lack thereof, they're going to make their stance known, and that's tragic. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gandhi. I'm with M&T Bank. Thank you for your service, gentlemen. I serve proudly. Now, I just came back from the funeral of one of my dearest friends today. We've lost him to suicide, and he's never been in country, right? Do you feel like a lot of those veterans who gravitate towards that need for war stem from the pedestal that we put some of the martyrs to say, of those who have been in country and have died? Or do you also feel like the lack of support for some of those? Yes, a lot of us assimilate very nicely into the civilian life, but those that don't assimilate nicely to the civilian life, there is a very big taboo where we don't talk about mental health in the military. You served in the Navy, for instance. I served in the Marine Corps, and I served in a MARSOC unit. There is some things that you don't talk about, right? And do you feel like when those people, then they get out, the need to be a martyr, or, does that become amplified with those groups?
First of all, I am so sorry to hear about your friend. If you don't mind, what was his name?
Sergeant Matthew Roy.
So I have spent so much time thinking about this. I've written about it. I've done interviews about this. I think one of the biggest problems we have in the way we talk about, think about, address our veterans who are coming home is we either put them on a pedestal or we demonize them. We don't acknowledge that they're people just like everyone else with a lot of the same issues, a lot of the same challenges, a lot of the same hopes and dreams. They're either lionized, as you put, made into martyrs, or they're demonized. And PTSD is a great example. 98% of Americans suffering from PTSD never served in the military. They're assault victims, they're car accident victims, yet when it's associated with a veteran, suddenly that person becomes an automatic pariah, a threat. And I think we need to treat them much more like everyday members of our society. I do think that the lionization of the veteran is every bit as dangerous as the demonization of the veteran, not just on an individual basis, but for society. I really worry about making heroes of warfighters. The whole term has bothered me for a long time. Within the military, you know this, you're at MARSOC, we're warfighters, right? That's how they talk about us. Bothers the heck out of me because it puts us in a separate category. And, I am even uncomfortable when the airlines say veterans get to board first. I don't like that sense of separateness. It's bad for everybody.
Thank you. Now, what is the next step to that? I mean, in the past month, the Brandon Act was just signed finally since being active, which is, for you who might not know, is an act that allows military members to actually seek professional help without discrimination, but at the discretion of their command. How do you feel about, the discretion of the command part of it, which I feel like it's like, hey, here's something, but there's this little string that I can literally pull at any time and take it away from.
Yeah, so much of this is cultural for those of you who see us speak in a different language here. There is this cultural bias within the military towards getting help, especially mental health services. One of the bravest things I ever saw in the military, and I've seen a lot of brave stuff at Marine Special Operations Command. I'm sure this gentleman saw even braver stuff than I did. But one of the things that has risen to the top of that list was when an Air Force two-star general publicly released his weekly calendar, and it included an hour-long mental health therapy session. It's that kind of example setting that we need more of, to send the signal to troops all the way down to the private first class that the brain is like any other organ in the body, and sometimes it needs time to repair. And I think that's a start.
Charlie, what next, if you could answer the question for this film? How do you want to see this progress? Like, we're a year away from Election Day 2024, and some of these guys in the film are going, you know, it may not happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be noted that the new Speaker of the House was the author of the stolen election theory. He authored the lawsuit in Texas. So I do worry about a lot of the stuff that we talk about coming true. I mean, you know, what Bill Kristol and Mike Green talk about at the end of the film, which is the idea that the House may not certify the election if, you know, they don't like who was elected. In terms of where the film's going, we're actually being broadcast in Germany and France in January, early January of next year, and we're going to be releasing the film on January 6th domestically as well.
January 6th, how fitting.
Yes.
That's perfect. Are we out of time? Man, do we have any time for maybe one question? Anybody? Yes, sir.
I know this is maybe a very long answer, but you know, the expression the Republican Party has been co-opted by you know, military right wing. I kind of don't see it that way. It seems like the Republican Party has embraced the right wing, and I was wondering if you could suggest how did that happen? I mean, it's not that all Republicans in Congress and the Senate were replaced. There weren't. Long-time Republicans simply rolled over and drank the Kool-Aid.
I think right now the GOP, and correct me if you think differently, the GOP is pretty fractured right now. You do have those who have the biggest mouths trying to get on television, get on Fox, CNN, and if they can, MSNBC. But yeah, no, it's fairly fractured right now. There are a lot of Republicans who are totally against this, the Trumpers, who are against MAGA. And right now they're going through a metamorphosis. I don't know where it's going to wind up, though, and that's as equally, to me, scary when you think about it. But how do you feel about it?
To me, one of the most sort of informative things that you can say or gather from the Republican Party is that they ran Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and Denver Riggleman out of the party in favor of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And that tells you everything you need to know. And I think when Chris Goldsmith in the film says, I couldn't imagine where we are now. I mean, think about it. In 2015, could you have imagined that Marjorie Taylor Greene, a QAnon supporter, I mean, would have a voice in the Republican Party and would be able to get Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney kicked out of the Republican Party and run out? That's, if someone, think about it, in 2015, if someone had said that, a QAnon believer is going to run Liz Cheney out of the Republican Party, you would be like, that's ridiculous. So now play it forward and see what could potentially be the next step.
What shook me was Herschel Walker, that name being bandied about. But I'm sorry.
Well, Herschel, I mean, he was, I actually know Herschel. I've interviewed him, I've done stuff about him. He was a tool. He was not, I put him in a different class.
I think most of them are. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think you might be keying in on something that I'm very sensitive to, which is the voting behavior among Republicans. And it's worth remembering that they unanimously elected a Speaker of the House who was the architect of the big lie.
How much time do we have? I just want to know. Are we, yes, sir.
Yeah, somebody did predict what was going to happen in 2015, and that was Timothy Snyder, wrote the book on tyranny, and it predicted everything. It even mentioned Trump's name, but it also talked about how Nazism was not started. That basically the structures and the institutions of the country got, sort of propaganda. So lawyers played a huge part in the SS. He talks about that. And when that book came out, I read it 3 or 4 times. It's like this small, and it was costing almost nothing. I wanted to see huge numbers of that book just given out. It really is one of the best books ever written about fascism, Nazism. I don't know if you guys know who he is.
Sure, of course.
Okay, everybody knows. All right. The book came out in 2015, and it literally predicts everything that's happening without even mentioning Trump's name. And it really deconstructs Nazism.
What scares me is Donald Trump is up there in years, Joe Biden is up there in years, and what's going to fill that vacuum in the next election, possibly, maybe 5 years from now? That's what scares me.
I mean, I don't know. Actually, one thing I would like to say is, I've watched the film a bunch. I've seen it a lot. And one thing I was thinking about today when I was watching it was that 2 things. One, that Kathleen Blue at the beginning of the film says, in the aftermath of war, we all become more violent. Not just people who served, but all of us. And then at the end of the film, Mike Breen talks about how he's seen what happens when the center cannot hold and when your in-group, out-group becomes a matter of life and death. And I'm thinking about that a little bit in terms of what we're seeing right now in terms of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, how it's taking shape here in the United States. And people aren't killing each other yet, but things are getting violent. And I'm worried that what Kathleen Blue is saying is true, and that we all are becoming more violent, and that we are no longer able to resolve our problems through dialogue or through politics, and that people will resort to violence to sort out their problems. And I think we're seeing that sort of bubbling up. We saw it on January 6th, and I worry about what's going to happen in the next year.
A house divided cannot stand. Abe Lincoln, long time ago. One more question.
I just wanted to comment about what you were talking about. I think that what the interviews that you captured speak to what you just said about the isolation that exists in our society on just being able to be online and in your own little world and not having to. I mean, look at the audience, how small it is tonight. Instead of having a large group of people coming together, having conversation and relating, we're streaming online now. We're not hitting the theaters. We're getting our news and information privately, and we come to our own conclusions, like the gentleman said. I wanted to just note that, and then I also wanted you, Ken, to speak to the fact that when you're being interviewed on this very right-wing broadcast, generally when people are speaking and they're coming in from opposite points of view, there's a lot of tension and a lot of aggression. How do you keep the conversation moving in a positive way where you really make inroads?
Mutual respect.
Well, first of all, let me speak to the audience size. Small as it is, I think this is the best Q&A we've had in terms of the thoughtfulness behind the
and a great
questions.
theater. I love the theater.
And a beautiful theater. Maybe this is a note to end on, because when I talk to David Bellavia, you can look up the show, we are very intentional about beginning from a place of mutual respect and of possible shared experience. We both served in the military. That's where we start. He always introduces me as a fellow veteran who served his country. And if we can find something, even as basic as that, to agree on, it begins the conversation in a different place than if you started with January 6th or reproductive rights or, you know, school vouchers, you name it. If you start with something you have in common, it tends to set the conversation in a more productive direction.
You know, I used to remember watching Watergate. I remember the Republican congressman with tears in their eyes saying, this guy's got to go. Now everybody is salivating. They can't wait to do it. And that, to me, has got to stop on Capitol Hill. And it certainly isn't going to stop on Capitol Hill with who we have up there now. Did I see your hand? Yes.
First of all, thank you for this film. It made me immediately want to speak to a nephew of mine who was at West Point and spent 8 years in the service with his time in Afghanistan, and a person my age, with a family who spent his service in Vietnam, and they have very vastly different returns. The Vietnam service guy immediately went to a police department and became a police officer. The other one went into private consulting, so different experiences. But question, do you see any possibility, to April's point about having more people get together and talk, to making the film available to groups that would sort of market it in contexts where they would get groups together who would then, part of the event would be watching the film and then having chats, you know, sitting down with someone and talking with people, to sort of try to keep it going the same way we're keeping it going here, but through people's personal experience.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of grassroots rollout of a film is something that we're definitely exploring, and we're working with an organization who does that. It's work. It takes a lot of work. Someone needs to do it. But yeah, I agree with you. It is great to see it in a theater, see it with a group of people, and then talk about it afterwards, which is one of the reasons we like coming to festivals.
Charlie Sadoff, Ken Harbaugh, thank you very much for being here. Against All Enemies, I think it should be required viewing, especially in the next year. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you all for coming. Certainly appreciate it. And the AIFF goes through Sunday, so come on back.